Hey everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, yeah, that was nice. Okay. We got a new beer on tap. It's called Flying Squirrel IPA. I'm gonna cover that and a few other things this morning. Um, and yeah, it's a lovely day. The sun's shining. Maybe we're getting closer to spring. I don't know. Okay, this is Flying Squirrel IPA. It's a session IPA. It's skewing New England, like hazy IPA, although I will say it is not totally hazy. So there's some clarity to it, but we're definitely calling it a New England IPA. That's how it's designed anyway. Just came out a little clear, and that happens sometimes. Um, like if you hold it up to like a Pisgah or a like the Cure or something like that, it's going to appear a lot less opaque than those beers do. This beer is a showcase for Amarillo hops. It's one of my favorite hops. We use this in a few other of our beers, but this one is hopped solely with that hop. So Amarillo's got a lot of distinct characteristics. Just to remind you, hops are responsible for a few things in beer. One is bitterness, right? But here they're a little more on the side of like aroma and giving the beer a little bit of character. And that character is going to skew in a certain direction, but I wanted to kind of like do it in a fun way where we all take a look at the beer here. And you guys let me know what flavors you're reminded of. So think wide flavor wise and don't be afraid to shout something out even if it's not like the most desirable characteristic, although it's good if it is. So any flavors that this beer is reminding you of at all, just go ahead and shout them out. We'll like skip the obvious ones like, yeah, it tastes like beer, it's like right.
Kind of tastes like a Voodoo Ranger.
Okay,
Like a fruity.
perfect. That's a great place to start. So fruity is a fantastic place to start. So if you think about fruity and you think about like think about it as like a hierarchy, right? So it's not vegetables, it's not whatever trees, it's like fruit. Okay, great. So like we've got tree fruits, we've got stone fruits, we have tropical fruits. So like try and go a little bit deeper. So like within fruit, like where's like kind of the next step down the hierarchy?
I get citrus. Like that orange.
Great.
Yeah, it has that
Citrus, orangey,
I'm thinking
grapefruit, caramel. Okay. So let's stick with the fruit for a second. Caramel, put that to the side. We'll come back to that. I didn't say throw it out. I said put it to the side. Okay, so citrusy for sure. I would also add in there like a little bit tropical as well. It's kind of, to me, it's riding the line between citrus and tropical. It's definitely, Amarillo is going to show a lot of orange. Like that's probably the main characteristic that I would describe it as. We use Amarillo also in Pisgah. And to me, Pisgah is like, it's like a glass of orange juice that happens to be a beer. That's kind of how I experience Pisgah. And we've got Pisgah's matched with a few other hops that are kind of creating that effect. But yeah, I would say that like this is citrus, specifically orange, maybe even a little bit of lemon in there, or even lemon peel. I get a little bit. And then on the tropical side of things, like I don't know, maybe like a guava or papaya, like something that's kind of like out there. Definitely like not getting on the spectrum of pineapple or mango. Like that's maybe a little too in the tropical vein that I'm not really getting from this. So like something like that. And this is a good way to describe it to people. Be like, you know, I mean, you could sound like really, really knowledgeable about beer if you're like, yeah, it's got like really nice orange notes coming from the Amarillo hops. Like, boom, people are already like, oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'll have one. Or the opposite, but hopefully they'll choose to have one. Did you say caramel? 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 What do you say?
caramel.
Caramel? Yeah, me too.
It's a Rochester thing.
uh, yeah, for sure. So, just a note on that, like that's not coming from the hops. caramel flavors are coming more from like the malt.
Okay.
So when we add in some of these like modified malts, so basically like we can take malt is like barley, right? It's malted barley. That's what we have to get into the brew. We can't just take the barley from the field and like try and throw it in the mash tun. Like we're not going to get beer. We'll get something else, grain juice. I don't know. But a non-fermentable product is what we'll get. In the malting process, part of that is kilning the malts. So you're heating them up for different amounts of times. And if you heat them up for longer, you'll get a Maillard reaction, and then you'll get these other flavors coming out of them, like caramel. There's a whole line of malts that are somewhere between like a Pilsner malt and like a chocolate malt that you would use for like stouts or something that are called caramel, and they're just called like caramel and then the number. Maybe we're getting too into the weeds here, but like the number, the Lovibond number, which is just the scale invented by this dude named Lovibond, that indicates what color they are. So like if it's caramel 60, that means that it's been kilned so that it becomes dark enough so that it's Lovibond 60. Or if it's caramel 120, that means that it's darker. So it's 120 on the Lovibond scale. So that's pretty dark. And then of course, like the far end of that is like a chocolate malt, which doesn't actually have any chocolate in it. It's just a very, very dark malt that those Maillard reactions have taken place, and they get like this roasty character, which brings out chocolate and coffee flavors, hence why you get your stouts, and they skew like chocolate and coffee. So all of that to say, when you're getting like a caramel aroma, which I'm also getting, that's going to come from like an addition that's like a little bit more than that base Pilsner malt, that's like mainly for color, but also will contribute to flavor. Was that too much? Yeah. Well, also on that note, just to repeat that too, it's like, so Olivia said that like, as I talk about caramel, like all of a sudden you're like, oh, you're seeing that there's caramel in the beer. That I think speaks to the power of suggestion when we talk about beer. And like, that's a real thing that I have observed a lot over the years. You know, we can all get to different conclusions by, based on like, if you think about it, like somebody comes to the table and I ask you guys like, smell this beer, what are you getting? And I'm asking you to use flavor descriptors that are, I'm not asking you to say like, what kind of hops do you think are in here? I'm saying like, what smells that are familiar to you are you getting out of this? Well, if somebody was going to come and say like papaya, well, you have to have experienced papaya at some point to know what papaya smells like. So like, every person brings an amalgamation of their life's experiences, especially culinarily, to like any tasting or experience of a beer. So it's like, if I suggest that whatever, I don't know, there's strawberries in this thing, like it's very and there's not. It's very possible that, somebody's going to start saying like, oh shit, I smell those strawberries. That's awesome. The power of suggestion when it comes to beer and all kinds of things is it's powerful. And
It's powerful. The power is powerful.
the power is in fact powerful. When I think about that too, I think about like the wine world, right? Like if you ever go to a vineyard and you like hear people talk about wine, they're like, it smells like turtle shell. Like you're like, okay, yeah, I guess if you say so.
Yeah.
That also exists in the beer world. I think that we skew a little more like relatable when it comes to that stuff. But you can go deep. You get into Belgian beers, and it is very much a lot of crossover with wine world and wine descriptors. And anyway, enough on that. This is Flying Squirrel IPA. I think it's at like 4.1%. It's really low. It's meant to be crushable. It is replacing Carney Crusher. Difference between Carney Crusher and this The bitterness is pulled back quite a bit. I think that makes it a little more approachable. ABV is down just a little bit, actually. Carney Crusher was pretty low, too. Was Carney Crusher 4.2? 4.5?
Yeah.
5? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's like, we're putting this on here to have something that's like really hop forward and is going to deliver on what you're looking for as far as like packing hops into a beer, but isn't going to, there you go, isn't going to destroy you ABV wise.
Nice drinkable spring beer.
Exactly,
A
yeah.
little more oomph than Carney Crusher, a little more darker in color.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so a couple quick things and then I will wrap this up so that we can all get rolling here this morning. Okay, a few things that are coming up. We've got a beer pairing dinner that's happening on April 7th. I have not talked a whole lot about this, but I'm really excited about it. Brandon and I got together and we were like, okay, we want to do a dinner where we're creating a tasting menu and then pairing beers with each course of that tasting menu. And we like sat down and we were like, okay, we have the whole world of beer and food open to us. Like, where do we overlap and where do we want to kind of like meet together to create this experience? And we found out that we have this kind of shared love and experience with Middle Eastern and Mediterranean food. Brandon kind of grew up with that. It was some of his first like culinary, like he had a job in like a Lebanese restaurant. That sounds like it was nuts. The stories that he's going to tell, I'm sure, will be crazy. Many of you may not know this about me, but I lived in the Middle East for a decade. I just came back like 3 years ago. So I'll bring some of my experiences to this. And I think like the main thing is like we're going to be telling kind of a story through beer and food. You know, it's not just like here's your plate, like whatever. This is something that's like really coming from the heart from both of us. And I assure you it's going to be like a really like one of a kind experience. So I want to tell you that so that like we can get that through to folks who ask us about it. Or even if you like or want to be proactive and kind of tell folks that we've got this coming up, if they're like, oh, we really dig what you're doing here, you know, you can be like, if you like this, you'll probably like this too. So yeah. We're going to drop a few more promo videos and some beer pairings and stuff like that in the next week. Yeah. Any questions about that? We should probably wrap this up.
With what we have on tap now, or are you doing some stuff?
I think it's all going to end up being what we have on tap right now. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.